The dense jungle stretched endlessly, a thick green world filled with towering trees and tangled vines. Sounds of creatures echoed from every direction, their calls filling the air with mystery and fear. In the middle of this wild place, beneath the wide, dark green leaves of a giant plant, sat a small alien girl named Lila. Lila hugged her knees to her chest, her tiny body trembling with fear and sadness. She had never felt so alone. Her delicate skin shimmered slightly in the soft light, filtering through the thick jungle canopy above. Her eyes, wide and bright like jewels, were now filled with tears that flowed silently down her small cheeks. Earlier that day, her life had changed dramatically. Lila had been traveling peacefully through space with her family, excited about visiting new worlds and discovering amazing things. But suddenly, without any warning, their spacecraft shook violently and started spinning out of control. Her parents had shouted instructions and rushed around trying to fix the problem, but it was no use. The ship crashed onto an unfamiliar planet, splitting apart on impact. When Lila opened her eyes after the crash, everything was quiet. She was alone. Panic surged inside her as she called desperately for her parents, but no one answered. Frightened, Lila climbed from the broken ship, stepping into a world unlike anything she had ever seen. The jungle was alive, filled with strange noises and movements. Shadows danced across the ground as the wind blew through branches high above. Every sound startled her, making her jump and look around in fear. Her small heart beat rapidly, and her breathing became quick and shallow. Trying to find safety, Lila had wandered through the dense growth until she could walk no more. Exhausted, she hid beneath the leaves of the enormous plant, hoping that something or someone friendly would find her soon. But now, as darkness began to fall, her hope started fading. "Mama," she whispered softly, tears streaming down her cheeks again. Her small voice was barely audible, lost among the sounds of the jungle. "Papa, please come back." She knew they wouldn't answer, but speaking their names made her feel less alone, even if only for a moment. The jungle around her seemed endless and unfriendly, filled with dangers she couldn't even imagine. Strange insects crawled nearby, their movements slow and purposeful. Above her, creatures with large wings flapped through the branches, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkening. Twilight. Suddenly, a loud noise startled her, and Lila jumped, pressing herself tighter against the cold ground. Her eyes darted around, searching for the source of the noise. It sounded close, as though something big was moving through the jungle. Her breathing became quicker, her small chest rising and falling rapidly with fear. Lila tried to stay quiet, listening carefully. The sound moved closer, heavy steps pushing through branches and leaves. Her heart pounded so loudly she was afraid whatever was approaching would hear it. Carefully, she peeked out from beneath the leaves, trying to see what was coming toward her. To her relief, the noise began moving away again. Whatever had passed by didn't seem to notice her hiding place. Lila let out a quiet sigh, but the fear inside her refused to leave completely. She curled up tighter, closing her eyes and hoping for a miracle. As darkness fully covered the jungle, the air grew cooler, making her shiver. Strange new noises filled the night, making it impossible to sleep. Loneliness overwhelmed her, and tears flowed freely once more. Lila had never known such sadness or fear. She longed for the warmth of her parents' embrace, the safety of her home. "I just want to go home," she whispered softly into the darkness, her voice breaking with sadness. Time passed slowly, the night seeming endless. Eventually, exhaustion overcame her, and Lila drifted into a restless sleep filled with troubling dreams. She dreamed of her parents calling her, trying to reach her, but they were always just out of reach. When she woke, the jungle was still dark, the sound still. Frightening. The tiny alien girl felt utterly helpless, wondering if she would ever see her family again. Tears filled her eyes once more, but this time she didn't try to hold them back. She allowed herself to cry, sobbing softly beneath the giant leaves, lost and completely alone in the jungle. Morning arrived slowly in the thick jungle. Gentle rays of sunlight pushed through gaps in the trees, casting patches of golden warmth on the damp ground. Birds and creatures began their daily chorus, waking the jungle with their lively calls and movements. Lila stirred slightly beneath her hiding place, blinking tiredly. Her tiny body felt sore and stiff from the cold night. She slowly sat up, rubbing her eyes, which still felt heavy from tears. As the sunlight touched her delicate skin, she felt a bit better, the warmth comforting her slightly. Despite the comforting sunlight, Lila's heart still ached with loneliness and fear. She thought about her family and wondered if they were searching for her. It seemed impossible to find each other in such a vast, unknown place. With a heavy sigh, she forced herself to stand, stretching her small legs and arms. "I must be brave," she whispered to herself, her voice shaky but determined. As she took a cautious step forward, her stomach growled loudly, reminding her she had not eaten since before the crash. Lila knew she had to find food and water quickly. Slowly, she began walking deeper into the jungle, scanning her surroundings carefully. At the same time, a human named Jake moved quietly through the jungle. Jake was a young explorer, passionate about discovering new plants and animals on different planets. He had arrived on this planet with a small research team, but today he had ventured off alone, hoping to find rare plants to document. Jake was tall and gentle, with calm blue eyes and a friendly smile. He enjoyed exploring, and the strange jungle fascinated him. He walked slowly, stopping often to carefully inspect colorful flowers and unusual insects. As he examined a large blue flower, a soft sound caught his attention. He stood still, listening carefully. It sounded like quiet sobbing, weak and filled with sadness. Curious and concerned, Jake moved slowly toward the noise, careful not to make sudden movements that might scare whatever or whoever it was. "Hello?" He called gently, his voice soft and reassuring. "Is someone there?" His words echoed slightly through the jungle, but no immediate reply came. Still, he could hear faint sounds of movement nearby. Determined to help if someone was in trouble, Jake moved closer, carefully pushing through thick leaves and branches. Meanwhile, Lila had stopped again, her tiny body trembling. She heard Jake's voice, but it was unfamiliar and strange. Fearful of the unknown, she quickly hid behind a large root, holding her breath and hoping the stranger would pass by without noticing her. Jake continued forward, moving gently but purposefully. He stopped when he reached the spot near where Layla hid. Kneeling down slowly, he looked around carefully, sensing that he was very close to whoever was making the sounds. "It's okay," Jake whispered gently. "I won't hurt you. Please come out." Lila listened closely. Although she could not understand all the words, the tone was calm and friendly, making her heart beat a little slower. Very cautiously, she peeked out from behind her hiding spot. Jake saw the small face looking at him and smiled warmly. Lila's heart jumped at the gentle expression on his face. Slowly, carefully, she stepped out, her tiny form shaking with nervousness and uncertainty. Jake was amazed at the sight before him. He had seen many things in his travels, but never an alien so delicate and small. With great care, he moved even slower, keeping his hands visible and open. "My name is Jake," he said softly, trying to make his voice comforting. "I am here to help you." Lila did not fully understand, but his kindness was clear. She took another step toward him, studying his face and posture carefully. Her large, shining eyes met his calm blue ones, and a feeling of trust began to form. Encouraged by her small step, Jake gently held out his hand. "It's all right. You're safe with me." Lila hesitated, her tiny hand trembling. Finally, she reached out, placing her small hand in Jake's much larger one. His hand was warm and comforting, instantly making her feel safer. Jake smiled gently, seeing her relax slightly. "I'll help you find your family," he promised softly, even though he knew it might be challenging. Together, human and tiny alien girl stood quietly for a moment, the jungle around them full of noise and life. They had found each other in a wild, unknown place, and though challenges lay ahead, for the first time since the crash, Lila felt hope. Jake and Lila walked slowly through the dense jungle, moving carefully to avoid the many tangled vines and hidden roots. The sunlight shone gently through gaps in the thick canopy, lighting their way. Birds sang cheerfully, unaware of the strange pair passing beneath their nest dot as they walked. Jake frequently glanced down to check on Lila. He moved slowly so she could easily keep pace. Her tiny legs were quick but short, and she had to take several steps for every one of Jake's long strides. She looked determined despite her exhaustion and hunger. Soon, Jake decided they needed to rest. He spotted a clear, safe place beneath a tall tree and guided Lila gently toward it. He carefully sat down, helping her sit beside him. Lila sank down gratefully, letting out a small sigh as she rested her tired legs. Jake reached into his small backpack, pulling out a water bottle and some simple food. He opened the bottle and handed it to Lila with a kind smile. At first, she looked at it uncertainly, not recognizing it. Jake carefully showed her how to drink from it, and Lila quickly understood, eagerly taking small sips of the cool water. It felt wonderful and refreshing to her dry throat. Next, Jake broke a small piece of food and offered it to Lila. She cautiously took it, smelling it first before tasting it. Her eyes widened happily as she tasted it, and she eagerly finished the small piece. Seeing her hunger, Jake smiled warmly and gave her another small portion. After eating and drinking, Lila felt much stronger and less fearful. She looked up at Jake gratefully, her eyes bright with trust. Though communication was still challenging, they were quickly learning to understand each other through simple gestures and expressions. "We will find your family," Jake said softly, speaking slowly so she could understand better. Lila nodded slightly, understanding his reassurance from his kind tone and gentle eyes. She felt hopeful, believing Jake could help her find her parents. Once rested, they stood and continued their journey. Jake kept careful watch on their surroundings, wanting to keep Lila safe. Occasionally, he would stop to examine interesting plants or to listen carefully to unusual jungle sounds. At one point, they encountered a small stream. Jake knelt down, showing Lila how to carefully cup the water in her hands to drink. She copied him eagerly, laughing softly when she accidentally splashed herself. It was the first time Jake had heard her laugh, and it made him smile widely. The sound was sweet, gentle, and pure. They walked for several hours, slowly covering more ground. Gradually, Jake noticed the jungle becoming quieter. The birds seemed fewer, and the dense growth began to thin slightly. Jake knew this could mean they were nearing the edge of the jungle, or perhaps coming closer to something else entirely. He paused, holding up a hand gently to signal Lila to stop. She froze, looking at him nervously. Jake smiled reassuringly, crouching down to speak softly. "Something feels different ahead," he explained simply. "We must be careful." Lila nodded, understanding his warning from his careful tone and the serious look on his face. She stayed close beside Jake as they moved forward, walking even slower now. As they stepped carefully through the thinning trees, they suddenly reached a clearing. Jake stopped, his eyes widening with surprise. In front of them were the shattered remains of a spacecraft, twisted and broken from a violent crash. It was clear this was where Lila's family ship had come down. Lila stared in shock and sadness at the familiar wreckage, memories flooding back. Tears quickly filled her eyes, but she blinked them away bravely. She knew Jake was trying to help, and they needed to search the ship for clues about her family's fate. Jake gently guided Lila toward the wreck, his steps careful and respectful. Together, they slowly searched the crash site, looking for signs of survivors or any messages left behind. Inside the damaged craft, Jake discovered a small glowing device on the floor. He picked it up carefully, showing it to Lila. Her eyes brightened instantly. She recognized the device as a communicator her family used to contact others. Excited and hopeful, Jake activated the communicator. It flickered faintly, crackling with static. Despite the weak signal, the device worked. Jake and Lila exchanged hopeful smiles, knowing they finally had a chance to reach her family. The tiny alien girl looked up at her human friend, her heart filled with gratitude and relief. Together, they would send a message and wait, hopeful that someone would soon hear their call and come to take Lila home. Jake carefully held the communicator, watching closely as it glowed softly in his hands. Lila stood near him, her eyes wide and hopeful. Both waited anxiously, hoping the signal would reach her family. Jake adjusted the device carefully, trying to improve the signal. The small communicator made soft static noises, then suddenly beeped faintly. Layla jumped in excitement, looking up at Jake with bright, joyful eyes. "It's working," Jake said softly, smiling gently at her. "Now we must." Wait. Lila understood the meaning clearly. Waiting would be difficult, but at least there was hope. They decided to stay close to the crash ship, knowing that Lila's family might use the communicator's location to find them. Jake quickly began building a simple shelter from broken branches and large leaves near the wreckage. Layla helped, eagerly gathering small leaves and soft grass to make the shelter comfortable. Working together made them both feel better, lessening their worries. After finishing their shelter, Jake lit a small fire, carefully ensuring it was safe and controlled. The gentle warmth comforted them as the night approached. They sat by the fire, eating more food Jake had carried in his pack. While they ate, Jake taught Lila some simple words from his language, helping her communicate more easily. Lila learned, quickly repeating words after Jake and smiling brightly when she got them right. This learning made them both happy, creating a stronger bond between them. As darkness fell, Jake and Lila heard strange sounds from the jungle again. This time, Lila was not as frightened. She felt safer knowing Jake was beside her. They sat close to the fire, listening carefully and sharing gentle smiles. During the night, however, the weather began to change suddenly. Thick clouds filled the sky, blocking out the stars and moon. Soon, heavy rain poured down, quickly putting out their fire and soaking their shelter. Jake immediately moved to protect Lila, using his jacket to shield her from the cold rain. Water streamed down his face as he held the jacket over her tiny figure. Lila watched him with concern, seeing his struggle. Despite the discomfort, Jake continued to shelter her without complaint, determined to keep her safe and warm. Finally, the rain slowed, leaving them both wet and cold. Jake quickly built another fire, patiently lighting damp branches until a small flame appeared. Soon, warmth returned, easing their shivers. Exhausted, Lila curled up next to Jake. Her small body trembled slightly from the chill, but Jake gently wrapped his jacket around her, providing extra warmth. Slowly, her shaking stopped, and she drifted into a peaceful sleep. Jake remained awake, keeping watch through the night. He looked at the sleeping alien girl beside him, feeling protective and responsible. He knew they faced many challenges, but Jake felt determined to reunite her with her family. Morning brought clear skies and sunshine, drying the jungle quickly. Birds resumed their cheerful calls, signaling a fresh start to the day. Lila woke up, smiling gratefully at Jake, feeling rested and safe. As the morning grew warmer, Jake decided to explore around their campsite, searching for fresh water and food. He took Lila with him, teaching her about various jungle plants and fruits. She carefully listened and learned quickly. Tasting different safe fruits he identified, they found a clear stream filled with fresh water. Jake showed Lila how to fill containers carefully, ensuring they would have enough water for the day. Together, they laughed and splashed lightly, feeling joyful and relaxed. Suddenly, a distant noise caught their attention. They stood very still, listening carefully. The sound was like a faint hum, coming from the sky above. Quickly, Jake grabbed the communicator, activating it again, hoping this would guide whoever was above toward their location. Lila's eyes filled with hope and excitement, and she held tightly onto Jake's hand, waiting anxiously. Soon, the hum grew louder, and a spaceship appeared through the clouds, hovering over the clearing. Relief flooded Jake, knowing rescue was finally here. The ship gently landed nearby, and a small group of aliens, who looked just like Lila, quickly emerged from the craft. They moved swiftly toward Lila and Jake, their eyes wide with relief and joy. One of the aliens, who appeared to be Lila's mother, ran forward, embracing her daughter tightly. Lila hugged her mother back, tears of happiness filling her eyes. Her family surrounded her, expressing gratitude to Jake through simple gestures and warm smiles. Jake stood quietly, feeling deep joy and satisfaction. He had kept his promise. Lila was finally safe, reunited with her family. Their time together had been short but meaningful, forming an unbreakable friendship between two very different worlds. After the emotional reunion, Jake was warmly invited onto the alien spacecraft. Lila's family showed deep gratitude through smiles, gestures, and gentle words that Jake slowly began to understand. Inside the ship, everything felt peaceful and welcoming, filled with soft lights and comfortable spaces. Jake watched in amazement as Lila happily introduced him to her parents and siblings. She excitedly pointed to him, using the simple words Jake had taught her. The alien family listened closely, their eyes filled with warmth and appreciation. Lila's mother approached Jake, placing her small hand on his arm, a universal gesture of kindness and friendship. She softly spoke words Jake couldn't fully understand, but deeply felt. He nodded, smiling gently, sensing the warmth and sincerity behind her words. After introductions, Lila took Jake around the ship, eager to show him her home in space. She explained each room through simple gestures and words, making Jake smile with each enthusiastic description. Despite the differences, he felt welcomed and comfortable in their presence. The family gathered around a large table to share a meal. The food was unfamiliar but delicious, made from fresh fruits and vegetables they had brought with them. Lila watched Jake carefully, making sure he liked everything. Jake smiled warmly, nodding and enjoying each new taste. As they ate, Jake tried teaching the alien family simple human words. Lila helped, proudly repeating the words he had taught her. The family eagerly practiced, their efforts filling the room with joyful laughter. Language was limited, but kindness and understanding spoke clearly. After eating, Lila's parents showed Jake pictures and holograms of their home planet. Jake watched in awe as beautiful images appeared, showing vast fields, tall mountains, and shimmering lakes. He listened carefully as Lila described each place, her small voice filled with pride and happiness. Jake shared pictures from his own device, showing Earth's oceans, forests, and cities. Lila's family looked amazed and curious, leaning in to see every detail. Questions were asked through simple gestures, and Jake answered patiently, using easy words and friendly expressions. During their sharing, Jake suddenly remembered his own research team, realizing he should contact them soon. He explained this carefully to Lila, using simple words. Understanding, Lila quickly guided him to a communication area on the ship. Jake activated his own device, carefully sending a message to his team. He explained he was safe and had found friendly aliens. The response from his team came quickly, filled with relief and excitement. They agreed to meet Jake at the clearing near the crashed spacecraft. Lila and her family gladly agreed to return Jake to his team. They prepared the ship to fly back to the clearing. As the ship rose smoothly into the sky, Jake felt excitement and a little sadness. His brief but meaningful adventure with Lila was nearing its end. Upon arriving at the clearing, Jake's team was already waiting, amazed by the alien craft landing gently in front of them. The team cautiously approached, eyes wide with wonder and curiosity. Jake stepped out first, smiling and waving to reassure them. Lila followed closely, bravely holding Jake's hand. She greeted Jake's friend shyly but warmly, repeating simple words Jake had taught her. His team responded kindly, quickly sensing the gentle nature of these alien visitors. Both groups stood together, sharing warm greetings and small gifts. Jake carefully explained the entire story, describing how Lila had become lost and their journey to reunite her with her family. His team listened carefully, amazed and touched by the story. As evening approached, the two groups exchanged goodbyes, promising future meetings and continued friendship. Lila hugged Jake tightly, thanking him again and again with her eyes and gestures. Jake knelt, gently holding her small hands, promising they would always be friends. Lila stepped back toward her family, her eyes shining with tears of joy and gratitude. Jake watched as she boarded the spacecraft, feeling a mix of sadness and happiness. He knew their paths had crossed briefly, but the connection would last forever. The alien ship rose gracefully into the sky, its lights glowing softly. In the twilight, Jake and his team watched until it disappeared into the stars, their hearts full of wonder and appreciation for this unexpected adventure. Jake knew he would never forget Lila, the tiny alien girl who had taught him about bravery, friendship, and kindness. The bond they formed had bridged worlds, creating an unbreakable friendship that would remain forever strong. Days passed since Jake had said goodbye to Lila and her family. Life for Jake had returned to normal, but his thoughts often wandered back to his adventure with the tiny alien girl. Each memory brought a gentle smile to his face, and he wondered how Lila was doing on her home planet. Jake continued his work with the research team, exploring and documenting the jungle's many wonders. His teammates often asked him about his experience, eager to hear more stories about the aliens. Jake would happily tell them about Lila's kindness, bravery, and quick mind. Everyone listened closely, amazed by the friendship formed between two beings from very different worlds. One sunny afternoon, as Jake and his team were carefully recording new plant species near their base camp, a faint hum in the distance caught his attention. The sound seemed familiar, causing his heart to beat faster. Jake quickly looked up, shielding his eyes from the bright sunlight, trying to spot the source of the noise. In moments, a familiar spacecraft appeared in the sky, gently lowering itself onto a clearing nearby. Jake's team watched in awe as the craft landed smoothly, its entrance opening quietly. Jake felt excitement surge through him, hoping to see Lila again. To his joy, Lila quickly appeared at the door of the spaceship, waving enthusiastically. She ran towards Jake, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Behind her, several members of her family followed, smiling warmly at Jake and his amazed teammates. Jake knelt down, embracing Lila warmly as she reached him. They hugged tightly, both filled with joy at seeing each other again. Lila immediately began telling Jake stories about her journey home and how much she had missed him. Though they spoke simple words, their bond was clearly felt by everyone watching. Lila introduced her family once again, proudly explaining their names and roles. Jake warmly greeted them, thanking them sincerely for returning. They explained, using simple gestures, that their return visit was to strengthen the friendship between their two worlds and to learn more from each other. Jake and his team eagerly welcomed the aliens, inviting them to explore their research camp and to see the many discoveries they had made in the jungle. Lila's family showed great interest, carefully examining each plant and creature presented to them. They were curious and respectful, often asking simple questions that Jake patiently answered. Throughout the day, both groups shared knowledge and laughter. The humans learned more about Lila's home planet, understanding better their way of life and customs. Jake carefully noted each detail, fascinated by their peaceful and advanced society. At sunset, they all gathered around a warm fire, sharing another friendly meal together. They exchanged stories, laughter, and smiles, each moment creating stronger connections and deeper friendships. Lila stayed close to Jake, happily helping him communicate with her family whenever needed. As the night deepened, stars filled the clear sky above. Jake pointed out constellations, teaching Lila their names in simple words. She listened carefully, her eyes filled with wonder and interest. In return, she showed Jake how her people navigated space using small glowing holograms. From her device, the night ended too quickly, and soon it was time for the aliens to return to their ship. Jake felt sadness again, but knew this visit had made their friendship even stronger. Lila hugged Jake tightly, promising she would return again. Her family expressed their gratitude and promised continued friendship between their worlds. Jake watched as they boarded the spacecraft, feeling both pride and happiness. He knew this connection would bring positive things to both their planets. With a gentle hum, the ship rose into the sky, its lights shining softly as it disappeared into space. After they had gone, Jake and his team stood silently for a moment, reflecting on the incredible day. They felt honored to be part of such a meaningful exchange. The experience had taught them all the importance of kindness, understanding, and friendship, even across great distances and differences. Jake returned to his tent later that night, feeling deeply satisfied and hopeful. Lay down, staring at the stars above, wondering when he would see Lila again. Their friendship had changed him, reminding him of the beauty and joy found in connection and understanding. He closed his eyes, smiling gently, knowing that no matter how far apart they were, he and Lila would always share a special bond. And in that peaceful moment, Jake felt a quiet certainty. Their paths would cross again, bringing new adventures and deeper friendship. Months later, the research team's time on the jungle planet was nearing its end. Jake continued exploring and discovering new things, but often paused to look up at the stars. Thinking about Lila, memories of their adventures warmed his heart and made him hopeful about future visits. One clear night, as Jake sat quietly by the campfire, a sudden, familiar humming sound filled the air again. Jake's heart jumped with excitement as he quickly looked up. A gentle smile crossed his face when he saw Lila's spaceship slowly descending through the starry sky toward their camp. Jake stood up eagerly as the ship landed gently nearby, its lights softly illuminating the clearing. Moments later, the ship's doors opened and Lila stepped out, quickly running toward him with a joyful smile. This time, Lila had brought a special surprise. In her small hands, she held a glowing crystal. "Jake!" she called happily, her voice clear and filled with delight. "Lila!" Jake replied warmly, bending down to greet her. They hugged tightly, laughing together at the joy of their reunion. Lila proudly presented the glowing crystal to Jake. Through simple words and gestures, she explained it was a gift from her home planet, symbolizing friendship and peace between their worlds. Jake held it carefully, deeply touched by the meaningful gift. Lila's family joined them again, greeting Jake warmly. They shared stories about their lives since the last visit, happily updating each other on recent events. Lila excitedly explained she had been learning more about humans, hoping to communicate better each time they met. As the group gathered around the fire, Jake's team eagerly joined the friendly aliens, bringing their own stories and questions. Everyone exchanged smiles and laughter, continuing to strengthen their bond. Jake's teammates asked Lila and her family many questions, carefully noting each answer to share with others back on Earth. Lila spent most of the evening close to Jake, happily sharing experiences from her home world. Jake listened closely, fascinated by her descriptions of alien festivals, peaceful ceremonies, and beautiful landscapes filled with colorful plants. Later that evening, Lila gently guided Jake away from the group, showing him a special holographic map of her home planet. She pointed out her favorite places, speaking simple words carefully. Jake felt honored that she shared such personal memories with him. As they stood together beneath the stars, Lila softly asked Jake to visit her home planet someday. Jake's heart filled with joy at her invitation, immediately promising he would find a way to visit. Both knew this meant their friendship would continue to grow. When morning arrived, it was again time for Lila and her family to leave. Jake and his team stood with them, exchanging warm farewells. Each goodbye was heartfelt, filled with promises of future visits and ongoing friendship. Lila hugged Jake tightly one last time, her eyes shining with gratitude. She reminded him gently, through simple words, of his promise to visit her planet. Jake assured her warmly that he would keep this promise, no matter how long it took. Lila boarded the spacecraft, waving until the door closed softly behind her. Jake and his team watched as the ship gently lifted into the sky, slowly disappearing among the stars after the spaceship was gone. Jake carefully held the glowing crystal, feeling deeply grateful for the strong friendship formed between their two worlds. He knew this gift symbolized a promise, reminding him of the kindness and bravery he had found in Lila. The research team began preparing to leave the jungle planet, carefully packing their equipment and findings. Jake worked diligently, but his thoughts remained with Lila and their promise. He shared the glowing crystal with his team, explaining its special meaning. Everyone admired it, understanding its importance. Finally, their departure day arrived. As their ship rose gently into space, Jake gazed through the window, smiling softly. He knew the jungle planet had changed his life forever. He had discovered more than plants and creatures. He had found true friendship and understanding across worlds. Back on Earth, Jake dedicated himself to sharing the lessons learned from his adventures with Lila. He spoke to many people about friendship, kindness, and understanding. The glowing crystal remained with him, always reminding him of Lila and their special bond. Years later, Jake finally traveled to Lila's home planet. Their reunion was filled with joy and celebration. Jake discovered even more beauty, peace, and kindness on her planet. Their friendship continued to grow stronger, proving that true connections knew no boundaries. And as Jake stood with Lila, beneath unfamiliar stars, he felt deeply thankful. Their friendship had begun with a lost little alien girl sobbing in a jungle, but it had grown into something much larger and more meaningful. It had become a powerful symbol of hope, understanding, and endless possibilities.